I never thought I'd catch my husband and mother-in-law plotting against me in my own kitchen. But there I was, frozen in the hallway, listening to them discuss how they'd been tampering with my birth control pills for the past 3 months. My name is Maddie, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. As an doctor, I deal with chaos and crisis every day, but nothing prepared me for this betrayal served up with Sunday morning coffee. She's too focused on her career, Ethan. A baby would give her something real to care about. Valerie's voice drifted through the doorway. I could picture her stirring her coffee with that silver spoon she always brings to our house, like somehow our cutlery isn't good enough for her. Mom, I know, but maybe we should give it more time. Ethan's voice had that familiar, uncertain tone he gets whenever his mother pushes him into something. More time? You're not getting any younger, and neither is she. Those pills in her purse? I've been replacing them with sugar pills. Give it another month, and nature will take its course. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. The room started spinning, and I had to lean against the wall to steady myself. 3 months. They'd been playing God with my body for 3 months. What if she finds out? Ethan asked, and I heard the slight tremor in his voice. She won't. Doctors make the worst patients, they never check their own medication. Trust me, once she's pregnant, she'll be too happy to question it. Every woman wants a baby deep down. I felt bile rising in my throat. Every cell in my body screamed at me to burst into that kitchen and confront them, but something held me back. Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was the surgeon in me, always calculating the best approach before making the first cut. Instead, I quietly backed away from the kitchen door. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my car keys from the entry table. I needed to think, to breathe, to process this massive breach of trust from the two people who were supposed to love me most. As I slipped out the front door, I heard Valerie's voice one last time. Just remember, Ethan, sometimes we have to make difficult choices for the people we love. I started my car and drove away from my house, my marriage, and the life I thought I knew. But one thing was crystal clear: they had no idea what kind of difficult choices I was capable of making. I spent 3 days at Jess's apartment before returning home to face Ethan. My best friend had offered her guest room indefinitely, but we both knew hiding wouldn't solve anything. When I finally walked through my front door, Ethan was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. Where have you been? His voice was quiet, controlled. I've been calling. I know exactly where I've been, I said, dropping my bag by the door. The real question is, where have you been all these months while your mother was playing pharmacist with my birth control? The color drained from his face. Maddie, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you justify conspiring with your mother to force me into a pregnancy I've explicitly said I'm not ready for. My voice stayed steady, though my hands were shaking. Ethan stood up, reaching for me. You don't understand. She's been relentless. Every day it's another comment about legacy, about time running out. She keeps showing me photos of my cousin's kids, talking about how fulfilled their lives are. So, you decided to violate my trust? My body. I stepped back from his reach. Do you have any idea what that means to me as a doctor? As your wife. I just thought once it happened, you'd be happy. You're so good with kids in the ER. That's my job, Ethan. It's not the same as being ready for motherhood. I ran my hands through my hair, fighting back tears of frustration. God, do you even know me at all? His face hardened. Maybe I don't. The Maddie I married wanted a family. The Maddie you married wanted a partner who respected her choices. I moved toward the stairs, needing space. Not someone who'd let his mother orchestrate some sick reproductive coup. She means well, he said weakly. I turned back, laughing without humor. She means well? That's your defense? Would you say that if I secretly got a vasectomy because I thought it was best for you? The comparison hit him hard. I could see it in the way his shoulders slumped. But instead of answering, he just stood there, looking lost in his own living room. I'm going to bed, I said finally. But Ethan, this isn't over. And if you ever let your mother make decisions about my body again, it won't just be 3 days I'm gone. As I climbed the stairs, I heard him sink back into the couch. Part of me wanted to go back down, to shake him until he understood the magnitude of this betrayal. Instead, I locked our bedroom door for the first time in our marriage and pulled out my phone to text Jess. I need you to help me find a good divorce lawyer. Just in case. The irony of sitting in Mara's fertility clinic wasn't lost on me. After years of carefully avoiding pregnancy, here I was, seeking answers about my husband's reproductive health without his knowledge. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. I pulled Ethan's records from his physical last month, Mara said, sliding a folder across her desk. The results are, well, you should see for yourself. My hands trembled as I opened the file. The numbers jumped out at me immediately: 0 sperm count. Complete azoospermia. I read the results 3 times, letting the implications sink in. He has no idea, does he? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mara shook her head. The lab sent the results, but he never came in for the follow-up appointment. Technically, I shouldn't be showing you this, but given what you told me about the birth control situation, all this time, his mother's been orchestrating this elaborate scheme. I closed the folder, feeling oddly hollow. And he's been letting her, knowing it could never happen anyway. Maybe he doesn't know, Mara suggested gently. Or maybe he does, and this is all some twisted way to blame me when it doesn't happen. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. God, Mara, what am I supposed to do with this? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom's coming over for dinner. Says she has something important to discuss. Please come home early. Perfect timing, I muttered, showing Mara the message. Maddie, she said, her voice careful. Whatever you decide to do with this information, just remember that medical conditions aren't weapons, even if they deserve it. I stood up, gathering my things. I know, but neither is my reproductive system. Walking to my car, I called Jess. She answered on the first ring. So, she asked, what did Mara say? Turns out Mother Nature has a better revenge plan than I ever could. I started the engine. Ethan's infertile. Completely. And his mother's coming over tonight to probably pressure us about grandchildren again. Holy shit, Jess breathed. What are you going to do? I pulled out of the parking lot, heading home to face whatever fresh manipulation Valerie had planned. I'm going to sit through dinner and watch them dig their own graves. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people destroy themselves. And then I'm going to decide if there's anything left in my marriage worth saving. I ended the call, feeling strangely calm. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I had something they didn't. The truth. And truth, I was learning, could be the sharpest weapon of all. The dinner with Valerie was exactly what I expected, a masterclass in passive-aggressive manipulation. What I didn't expect was finding the fertility clinic's unopened letter in Ethan's desk drawer afterward, dated 3 months ago. The same time they started tampering with my birth control. I was still holding the letter when Ethan came into his home office. Looking for something? His voice was sharp, defensive. Just answers. I held up the envelope. Like why you'd hide your infertility diagnosis while letting your mother play games with my medication. The color drained from his face. You had no right to. No right? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. That's rich coming from you. It's not what you think. He reached for the letter, but I pulled it away. Then explain it to me, Ethan. Explain why you'd rather destroy our marriage than admit you can't have children. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking older than his years. Mom doesn't know. Nobody knows. I couldn't face it. When she started pushing about the birth control, it was easier to just let me be the problem. The pieces were falling into place. To let me be the career-obsessed wife who's denying you a family? That's not. Save it. I pulled out my phone and showed him the text I'd just received from the hospital. I'm taking a temporary position in Seattle. 3 months at their trauma center. You're leaving? His voice cracked. Just like that? Just like that? No, Ethan. This isn't just like that. This is what happens when you let your mother poison our marriage instead of being honest with me. With yourself. He stood up, desperation in his eyes. We can fix this. I'll tell Mom to back off, You'll what? Finally start acting like my husband instead of your mother's son. I tucked the letter into my pocket. I need time to figure out if there's anything left here worth saving. Maddie, please. I'm taking the Seattle position. When I get back, we can decide what happens next. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ethan? Your mother's coming over tomorrow to discuss fertility treatments she's researched. Have fun explaining this one on your own. As I walked out, I heard him slump back into his chair. My phone buzzed again, another text from Jess. Guest room's ready whenever you need it. I typed back quickly. Thanks, but I think it's time I learned to stand on my own. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Sometimes the heaviest chains are the ones we forge ourselves, and I was finally ready to break free. 2 weeks before my Seattle assignment, Ethan ambushed me at the hospital. I found him waiting by the nurse's station, holding a familiar-looking envelope from his company. I got the Denver position, he said without preamble. Senior project manager. They want me to start next month. I kept my face neutral, continuing to update my patient charts. Congratulations. Come with me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. We can start fresh. No more mother, no more pressure. Just us. Running away won't fix what's broken, Ethan. Neither will running to Seattle. He placed the job offer on my keyboard. This is our chance. Mom won't even know where we've gone until... Until what? I finally looked up. Until you've hidden enough of your problems that we can pretend everything's fine? A nurse walked past and we both fell silent. Through the window, I could see an ambulance pulling up to the ER entrance. I told her, Ethan said quietly, about the infertility. That got my attention. And, she cried, said we could look into adoption or donors. He laughed bitterly. Then she asked if maybe that's why you've been so resistant to having children, because you somehow knew. My pager buzzed, multiple trauma incoming. Perfect timing. I have to go, I said, standing up. But Ethan? The fact that you think moving to Denver would solve anything shows you still don't understand what's wrong. Then explain it to me. His voice rose, drawing stares from nearby staff. Dr. Harper, one of my residents called out urgently from the ER doors. I grabbed my stethoscope. What's wrong is that you're still trying to run from the truth instead of facing it. What's wrong is that you let your mother poison our marriage because you were too afraid to stand up to her. What's wrong is that you're standing here asking me to abandon my career to help you hide from your problems. Maddie. Dr. Harper. The resident called again, more insistent. I have to go save lives now, I said, already moving toward the ER. Maybe while I'm doing that, you can figure out how to stop destroying yours. As I pushed through the ER doors, I heard him call after me. I already signed the contract. I didn't turn back. Let him go to Denver. Let him run as far as he wanted. Some distances couldn't be measured in miles, and the gap between who I married and who he'd become was far too wide to bridge with a change of scenery. I wasn't planning to go to our anniversary dinner. After Ethan signed the Denver contract without consulting me, I'd made it clear we were done. But something pulled me to that restaurant anyway, maybe closure, maybe masochism. I'll never forget the sight that greeted me through the window. Ethan at our usual table, sitting across from a visibly pregnant Chloe Bennett from his office. They hadn't noticed me yet. Through the glass, I watched him reach across the table to touch her hand, saw the intimate way they leaned toward each other. My wedding ring felt like it was burning against my skin. I pushed open the door, the little bell announcing my arrival. Ethan's head snapped up, his face draining of color. Maddie. He jerked his hand back from Chloe's. This isn't... I can explain. Dr. Harper, Chloe said, her hand moving protectively to her swollen belly. I didn't... We weren't. I held up my hand, silencing them both. The restaurant had gone quiet, other diners pretending not to watch the drama unfolding. How far along are you? I asked Chloe directly. She glanced at Ethan before answering. For months. I did the math in my head, right around the time Valerie started tampering with my birth control. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. Congratulations, I said, my voice steady despite the roaring in my ears. I hope you're both very happy in Denver. Please. Ethan stood up, reaching for me. Let me explain. Explain what? I stepped back. How you let your mother torture me about having children while you were getting someone else pregnant. Or how you're running away to Denver because you know your mother will never forgive you for this. Chloe's eyes widened. You haven't told your mother? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Oh, he's told her plenty. Just not about you. Maddie, stop. Ethan pleaded. No, you stop. I pulled off my wedding ring and placed it on their table. I'm done being the villain in your story. I'm done being the career-obsessed wife who wouldn't give you a family. I'm just done. As I turned to leave, Chloe called out. He said you were separated. I paused at the door, looking back one last time. We are now. Walking to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Valerie. Ethan says you're being unreasonable about Denver. Call me so we can discuss this like family. I deleted the message without responding. Let Ethan explain to his mother why her grandchild would be calling someone else mom. Some secrets weren't mine to keep anymore. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. 3 weeks after I left Ethan, Chloe Bennett showed up in my ER with pregnancy complications. Of all the hospitals in the city, she had to come to mine. Dr. Harper, she whispered when I walked into her room. I can request another doctor. I took an oath, I said, checking her vitals. Your blood pressure's concerning. Ethan burst through the door just as I was reviewing her chart. He froze when he saw me, then moved protectively toward Chloe's bed. What's wrong? Is the baby? Dr. Harper was just. Chloe started. Getting a consult. I finished pressing the call button. Within moments, Mara appeared at the door. Perfect timing. Dr. Chen, could you review these test results? I handed her Chloe's chart, watching understanding dawn in her eyes as she read the name. Mara's expression shifted as she studied the numbers. We should run additional tests, given the father's medical history. What medical history? Chloe asked. I saw the moment Ethan realized what was coming. Maddie, don't. Complete azoospermia, Mara stated professionally. According to Mr. Harper's records from 3 months ago. The room went silent. Chloe's heart monitor picked up speed. That's impossible, she whispered. Ethan? He stood there, mouth opening and closing, no words coming out. I'll order those tests, Mara said, slipping out of the room. You knew, Ethan finally managed, staring at me. You knew, and you didn't tell me. Like you told me about Chloe? I checked the foredrip, keeping my voice steady. Or, like you told her about your infertility. Or, maybe like you told your mother about your pregnant mistress? Stop, Chloe sobbed, her blood pressure spiking on the monitor. I need you to leave, I told Ethan, my doctor voice taking over. Her pressure's too high, and you're not helping. This isn't over, he said, backing toward the door. It's been over since you let your mother tamper with my medication instead of admitting you couldn't have children. I adjusted Chloe's medication flow. Go call the real father. She's going to need him. After he left, Chloe grabbed my arm. I didn't know about any of it. I swear. I gently removed her hand. I believe you. But right now, I need you to focus on staying calm for your baby. The rest. I glanced at the door where Ethan had disappeared. That's his karma to deal with. The monitor's steady beeping filled the silence as I finished my examination, each sound marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you do, it's simply stepping aside and letting the truth do its work. 6 months after the hospital incident, I received a letter from Denver. I recognized Ethan's handwriting on the envelope, but it sat unopened on my desk for 3 days before I finally read it. The Denver job fell through, he wrote. Turns out companies aren't eager to hire someone whose personal drama made the local news. Mom hasn't spoken to me since she found out about Chloe. You were right. I spent so long running from the truth, I forgot how to face it. I folded the letter and looked around my new office at Seattle Grace. The temporary position had become permanent after I helped establish their trauma response protocol. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones life forces you to make. My phone buzzed, a text from Jess. Guess who just got engaged? Before I could respond, Mara knocked on my door. Thought you'd want to know. Chloe delivered last week. Healthy baby boy. The real father was there. Good for her, I said, meaning it. Any word on Ethan? Moved back in with Valerie from what I heard. Mara sat down across from me. You okay? I looked at the divorce papers on my desk, finally signed and ready to file. You know what's funny? For months I wanted revenge. I wanted them to hurt like I hurt.
But now
I realized the best revenge was letting go. I picked up Ethan's letter. He writes that he's sorry, that he understands now what he lost. But he's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry it didn't work out the way he planned. And Valerie? Still sends emails about how I'm throwing away a good man. I laughed softly. Last week she wrote that she's found a fertility specialist who might be able to help Ethan if I reconsider. Some people never learn, Mara said. No, but I did. I stood up, grabbing my lab coat. Come on, we've got rounds. As we walked through the hospital corridors, my pager buzzed, multiple trauma incoming. The familiar surge of adrenaline kicked in, but this time it felt different.
clean.
Purpose without baggage. I never replied to Ethan's letter. Some doors are better left closed. But I did send one final email to Valerie. Thank you for showing me exactly what kind of mother I don't want to be. The trauma bay doors burst open, bringing with them the organized chaos I'd grown to love. This was my legacy, not the children I was pressured to have, but the lives I chose to save. As I pulled on my gloves, I smiled, remembering something Jess once said. Sometimes the family you're born into teaches you what to run from, and the family you choose teaches you what to run toward. I was done running. This was exactly where I belonged.